A peaceful man who's about to be pushed a little too far.
Michael Douglas stars as Kirk Cousins in Falling Down. Sam Rockwell stars as Matt Ryan in Choke.
Maybe you're not so bad after all.
No, dude, I am. I really am.
An apt tagline from that film: vulgar, profane, obscene, and best of all, hilarious. If that's not the Colts in this game, I don't know what is. And we're off the hook, Broncos fans. We no longer have the worst offense ever. No. That honor belongs to the Minnesota Vikings in the first half, and then the Colts in the second half of this game. The Vikings, too, have an overpriced quarterback who everyone likes to hate on for no reason. Unless, of course, he's flying first class without a shirt and so much drip that mother lickers think he's melting. Not only did the Vikings put together one of the worst offensive and special teams performances of the year, they did it against the Colts. But only for a half, because then the Colts played the worst second half of football I have literally ever seen. They blew a 33-0 lead, and they were bailed out by the officials on multiple occasions. Matt Ryan now has given up the largest comeback in regular season history / NFL history, and of course also in Super Bowl history. And no, Matt, I'm sorry, but blowing a 33-0 lead in the regular season won't wipe our memories of 28-3. It just puts an exclamation point on it. This game was so bad that Colts fans were wishing they could relive hearing the news about Andrew Luck suddenly retiring all over again.
Hello, but I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision.
Indy produced one of the most pathetic second halves of football ever witnessed. Historically speaking, statistically, that is true. There's no getting around it, Indy. Heading into this game, the largest comeback in NFL history was 32 points. So yes, Matty Ice, I will hold your beer. The day Saturday, don't give no fucks about the man named Saturday. The new worst game ever. Great way to support this channel is to subscribe here. That's free, but if you want to purchase my coffee, I sell craft, high-quality grade beans at BenchwarmerBrew.com. And Vikings fans, if you're feeling kind of frisky, maybe check out the Kirk Cousins shirts I have in the Teespring store below. This game was indeed a tale of two halves. The first half of this game was so boring, even with 33 points scored by the Colts. The biggest highlight was this paper airplane soaring onto the field.
Comes the airplane.
In case you don't know, former Colts head coach and former NFL backup quarterback Frank Reich led the previous biggest comeback in NFL history for the Bills in the playoffs against the Houston Oilers, a game that I literally wrote a paper about in elementary school. I think Jim Irsay just paid the ultimate price for firing Frank Reich mid-season, as his team is now on the wrong end of that new record. And yes, the curse of Frank Reich may be the strongest in sports. Now there's a phrase in the NFL called garbage time, and it's not a reference to when your trash service will pick up your weekly garbage cans. It's when a team with a giant lead gives up a bunch of yards and sometimes points late to the opposing team. It's why sometimes very bad teams may have a quarterback with pretty damn good stats. Matthew Stafford, of course, was considered the king of this achievement as he had to play for the Lions for a decade plus. Real football fans know that's bullshit. Now the Colts were indeed giving up garbage time numbers to the Vikings before going full-blown clown mode. They were like the John Wayne Gacy of killing themselves. To make this collapse by Indy even worse, this was their win probability at halftime, 99%. I got 99 problems, and yes, a cousin is one. Now, Indy's halftime lead came because they were scoring with all three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. We were collectively dunking on the Vikings on Twitter. The Colts blocked a punt return for a touchdown. Dalvin Cook fumbled. Dalvin Cook also ran this failed fourth down attempt. I have to question his vision here. And by question it, I mean, did you even try to use your eyes on this play, Dalvin? Bounce to the right, bounce to the right. You might have known that had you started the play with your head not down. Minnesota executed a failed fake punt and capped all those gaffes off with a ridiculously loathsome pick six. To orchestrate one of the biggest comebacks, as a team, you've got to play horrible for at least a half. So good job, Minnesota. Justin Jefferson went down with an injury, and Kirk Cousins immediately threw that pick six one play later. And while this sucks for the Vikings and their offense, I think that's a big push for Justin Jefferson as MVP. But all those mistakes culminated in the Colts' 33-0 lead at halftime. This was Colts owner Jim Irsay at halftime. This, unfortunately, was Jim Irsay after the game. 10-3 was trending on Twitter at halftime because the Vikings were being labeled as the most fraudulent 10-3 team in NFL history. Well, congrats, Minnesota. You were saved by the worst or unluckiest team to ever use a lucky horseshoe for their logo. It seemed like a comeback was out of the question heading into the second half. More so than a lot of very other unlikely things, such as Noah Eagle, son of Ian Eagle, getting the play-by-play job purely on merit. Known Colts fans, Drew Lynch and Steve Green, not entering therapy after this game. Kirk Cousins saying a bad word, even while making love to his wife. This officiating crew getting to work the Super Bowl. All of these things unlikely. KJ Osborne being related to Ozzy Osbourne. That bat that Ozzy Osbourne bit into, tasting delicious. An ESPN analyst getting the job as the Colts' interim head coach. Oh, wait. Justin Tucker missing a kick. Oh, wait. Deshaun Watson getting the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history. Oh, wait. I turned this segment into something different. Anyway, back to the recap. They call him Matty Ice because as soon as he gets a huge lead, his body goes ice cold.
Man cometh. I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold. To your pleas of mercy, you are not sending me to the cooler. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age! Frozen, your icy tomb will plummet back to Gotham. Freeze well. Stay cool, bird boy.
In the second half, the Colts kicked a field goal. In the third quarter, their offense was so bad, even that field goal had to be a 52-yarder. That's as close as they could get to scoring. Indy's offense one-upped the Vikings and netted just 88 yards in the second half. The Vikings had 90 total yards of offense in the first half and netted negative 8 yards on their opening drive of the third quarter. But Kirk Cousins somehow finished with 460 passing yards. Indy's offensive series in the second half: punt, field goal, punt, fumble, down the ball. Downing of the ball in shame and accepting overtime. Even worse, they couldn't capitalize on a single one of Minnesota's mistakes or the help they received from the officials. Chandon Sullivan had not one, but two scoop-and scores negated by bad officiating in this game. The officials literally made sure Minnesota didn't score 12 points by sheer incompetence, and the Colts still couldn't get the W. Their first blunder was ruling forward progress here being stopped on the play, which Michael Pittman fumbled, and by blowing this scoop and score dead. The only time I want to hear the words blow and dead during a football game is if someone ODs on cocaine. Now, the Pittman call I almost sort of get, but blowing this run dead this early is just another wrinkle in how bad NFL officiating always is. What made this second half even weirder is it wasn't like the Vikings unleashed this unstoppable offense in the second half. They made mistakes too, but you played so much more poorly than them, Indy, they had no choice but to score 30 unanswered points to tie up the game. Minnesota made a valiant effort in the second half. I'm going to credit them for that. And they had a great punt return negated by a fake face mask penalty that could have possibly been the difference in the game. So that's 3 times the officials tried to bail out the Colts. Now, the most impressive thing the Vikings did in this disgusting excuse for a game was simply not give up. They showed the same perseverance of any person who has successfully paid off a big student loan. At some point, those payments will be applied to the principal. Now, I thought this game was over, well, at halftime, like everyone, but here, the final and ultimate dagger that had been pierced into the Vikings to send them off to Valhalla, again happened as soon as Justin Jefferson left the game. He had to leave for a play with an injury. Stephon Gilmore popped Jefferson, which drew a personal foul flag. But since the hit landed in the head area, Jefferson had to go to the blue tent to be evaluated for a concussion. And just like that, when he left the field, Cousins immediately threw an interception. Now, the second pick wasn't Cousins' fault. I might blame Jalen Reagor here for, I don't know, fucking giving up on the play. Who do you think you are, Jalen? Randy Moss when the ball's not going to you? Shame, Jalen, shame. But again, the Colts could do nothing. The Vikings trailed by 15 with 7 minutes left in the game. Despite that pick, they drove down the field and got within 8 on this Adam, I am hooked on a Thielen touchdown. It was shortly after that touchdown that the Colts coughed the ball up. And even though the touchdown didn't count, after review, the Vikings did indeed get the ball, and guess what they did? They scored the game-tying touchdown, right? Wrong. The Colts slammed Kirk Cousins to the ground on this rushing attempt on 4th and 15. I've watched the Broncos offense not help their defense at all season long, but this is pathetic, Indy. You got the ball back again with about 3 minutes left in the game and failed to convert on a 4th and 1, mirroring the Vikings from the first half. And unlike the Broncos, their defense never scored any points for them this season. It was after that failed 4th and 1 that Minnesota finally capitalized as Dalvin, I'm cooking baby horse on this swing pass for dinner, took it 64 yards to the dirt that pays. And yes, obviously, they converted the 2-point play to send this bastardization of football into a prolonged battle in overtime. Now, as pathetic as the Colts were in the second half of this football game, I cannot not shit on the Vikings for 1, riding literally the greatest wave of momentum in NFL history into overtime, 2, winning the coin toss, but then 3, being the only team with all of those things going for them to not fucking score on your opening drive. You ate up a bunch of clock and then punted the ball away. If Jim Irsay didn't hire a losing high school football coach to replace Frank Reich, who was literally responsible for the greatest comeback in NFL history prior to this game, you would have lost, Minnesota. But you didn't. With less than 2 minutes left in the game, and I believe no timeouts, Kirk Cousins, in prime time, clutched the shit out of this final drive. I think the rule for Cousins is if the game starts in non-prime time, but then lingers into prime time, he's not cursed. And the sad sack Colts not only gave the Vikings field position in field goal range by giving up a pass here, they tried to lay on the Vikings to run out the clock. So then they get hit with the delay of game penalty, pushing Minnesota a few yards closer with 7 lucky seconds left in overtime. And then Greg, my 2 first names are better than yours, Matt Ryan Joseph, blasted this field goal right down the gooch for the game winner. Greg, I've got nothing but respect for you, my man. We all know how tragically hilarious this game could have been if the Vikings kicker misses here and it ends in a tie. You, sir, will never have a higher pressure kick in your life. And somewhere, the 1992 Houston Oilers are popping a bottle of champagne like the 72 Dolphins do every year. Now, if you like this worst game ever video, check out where it all started in my series, The Worst Games Ever. fitting that the Colts kicked it all off with an overtime win against my Broncos back in October.
Hello.
Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. Come back tomorrow. I'll be live streaming during the Broncos game, and then hopefully not doing a new worst game ever for the Broncos. But you never know.